Hello everyone. Happy winter solstice if you are watching this live, and if you're in the northern hemisphere, I hope you're doing well and that you are enjoying these colder, darker months of repair and rest and introspection. I wanted to pop on here today for a quick Q&A. I had this idea because last week I conducted over 40 calls with fellow backpackers and aspiring backpackers as part of an open office hours service that was hosted by Andrew Skurka. So anyone interested could sign up for these free 15-minute calls with Andrew or myself or a couple of the other guides. And we had over 200 people sign up, and it was kind of crazy hopping from call to call over the course of 3 days. But honestly, I had such a blast doing it and answering all these people's questions. And there were a lot of common threads that came up with these questions, and I thought it would be great to be able to share that information with others so that other people who had similar questions could benefit as well. Because like I said, there were a lot of common themes, and I thought, oh, it's too bad that these aren't being shared anywhere. So today I wanted to cover 3 of the most common questions that I received. And if you enjoy this type of thing, let me know, and I will go into more of the themes that were covered in these calls. Or if you have your own question, that would be awesome. Just reach out, drop it in the questions, or let me know, and maybe I'll answer your question on a future live or a video as well. So I plan to keep these short, so I'll stick to 2 to 3 questions. And like I said, I pulled out some of the main themes because I was surprised at how much overlap there was in the 40 calls that I did and how many of the similar topics came up. So I imagine that other people have these questions as well. So hopefully this is helpful. And before we dive into the questions for today, I want to share a fun opportunity that I'm offering in celebration of the winter solstice. And that is that I am running a flash sale on all of my online courses from December 21st until December 24th. So that's starting tomorrow, again, if you're watching this live. And it's going to start at 21% off on the first day and then go down by 1% each day until the 24th. So down to 19% off the second day, 18% off, 20% off the second day, 19 the third day, 18 the last day. And you won't need a coupon code. You can just go to the course homepage, which I will post in the comments down below this video, and the discounts will already be applied until the flash sale is over. So this would include the Adventure Ready course, which is like my flagship offering, and that's how to create optimal health and a training plan for any sort of longer multi-night backpacking trip or a long distance hike, like a thru hike. It also includes the Performance, Nutrition, and Meal Planning for Backpackers course, the Become a Better Navigator course, and the Stay Safe in the Backcountry course. And yeah, I'll link to those in the comments below. And I think it would be a great fit, like a great offering for yourself, a gift for yourself, or a gift for a backpacker in your life. So if that interests you, if you have questions, let me know, or just go ahead and grab that discount while it's available. So let's dive into the questions. So the first sort of theme that I saw come up was about advice for hikers who will predominantly camp and hike solo. So I think about this in 2 layers. So just a little background. I've hiked probably around 10,000 miles at this point, backpacked, and a lot of that has been solo. It's probably predominantly been solo. So I do have experience with this. So I think of it in 2 layers. So layer 1, I think of as sort of like the foundation, like the standard practices that can increase your likelihood of staying safe in the backcountry. And then I think of the second layer of more the mindset. So I'm going to cover those 2 things. So in terms of like those foundations, like sort of standard practices that I think about, one is not camping near trailheads. So staying out of sight, like anywhere I'm putting my camp, I'm going to be out of sight from like the trail, away from a trailhead, some, harder to get to. And like I said, away from the trail, out of sight, so that people are just not aware that I'm even there. The second part of that is educating yourself on backcountry safety and on navigation. So I think a lot of problems and fears around hiking solo can come up from those 2 things. So things like animal encounters and how you handle those when you're solo, or things like river crossings and how you handle that when you're solo. So knowing how to, I would say, yeah, just like broadly taking classes, educating yourself, because the more educated you are on a topic, like the less scary it's going to seem, because you're going to know oh, if this situation comes up, I know how to handle this. And again, so that my backcountry safety course and my backcountry navigation course are places to start, but there's also places like REI offers classes, the Colorado Mountain Club here offers classes, lots of different options for that. So kind of educate yourself is that tip. And then another really standard tip, I think, is taking a satellite communication device. So something like a Garmin InReach Mini is what I use, or there's a newer device called the Zoleo, which is another satellite communication device. I think it's great, especially if you're solo, to have one of these. It's not just peace of mind for you, but for the people in your life as well. So I didn't carry one of these for a long time, but ultimately I felt like I had a responsibility to my family that if I was going to go backpacking solo frequently, that I should be carrying something so that I can get help in case of an emergency. And kind of along with that is the advice to leave your plans with somebody at home. So as detailed as possible, like on a really long distance hike, you're not going to tell somebody, at home where you're camping every night, because you don't know when you're going to be out there for, multiple weeks or multiple months. But if you're going on, a 2, 3, 5-night trip, you can usually give people a pretty good idea of what your itinerary is. And for sure, let them know when they're going to hear from you again. And if they don't hear from you by that time, let them know what to do. Contact this person, and then, or contact like the ranger in this district where I'm going to be, whatever it is, whoever the contact is in that area, leave that information with your person at home as well, so that they know what to do if you don't show up when you say you're going to show up. So those are that foundation piece. And then the next piece, the mindset piece, is first to trust your intuition. So if someone seems like a creep, or if your gut is telling you not to camp in a certain spot, I always trust that. And along with that, don't be afraid to lie. So I think we're often encouraged to be a good person, be polite, that sort of thing. But if somebody, I just never feel obligated to tell a stranger my plans, whether that's where I'm planning to camp for the night or where I'm headed for that day, or even if there's somebody traveling with me or not. So if someone if someone I meet on the trail, it's giving me an uncomfortable feeling and they're asking me kind of probing questions that might be normal from a person who's not a creep, but I just get a weird vibe from it, then I'll say, I'll just be very vague with my answers, or I'll say, oh, my hiking partner is right behind me, or I will say, or if I'm getting into a hitch and it's someone stops and they feel uncomfortable to me, I'll be like, oh, I left my hiking poles back at the last water crossing. Go ahead, I'll catch the next ride. Anything like that, I'm just not afraid to lie to keep myself safe. So trust that stuff. My next tip in terms of mindset is really getting to the bottom of your fears and pinpointing exactly what it is that's making you nervous. And whether it's a real concern or whether it's not, whether it's something that your mind is running away with an idea that's very unlikely to happen. And along those lines, I play out worst case scenarios. So what if I do run into that creepy person, or what if I do get lost, or what if I do get into bad weather, or whatever it is that I'm afraid of. I will play that out in my mind. I will take steps to mitigate those risks. And then I will just know what I will do in that situation, so that it's not when I'm in the situation, if it ever happens, which hopefully it won't, I will know how to react. And that usually dissolves a lot of fear that's happening as well. And so I actually do have a whole blog post about this on my website. So if you Google katiegerber.com and solo backpacking tips, there's an article there that goes through some of these if you want to go deeper on any of these. So that is that first question about tips for what if you want to hike predominantly solo, which honestly is a wonderful experience. If you feel called to hike solo, I absolutely encourage it. I think it's incredibly rewarding. You gain a lot of self-sufficiency and realize that maybe you're stronger than you believed you were before. So I'm definitely not saying yes, it is. So it is more dangerous, but there are definitely ways to make it safer and to make it much more approachable. And sometimes you just can't find a hiking partner and you want to go. So don't let that hold you back if you can't find a hiking partner. All right, that pink drink is electrolytes, if you're wondering. The second theme was essentially the question, I'm preparing for my first thru hike. Do you have any tips or any wisdom to share that I might not have come across already? And I really love this question because I think there's a lot of information out there on like gear and training and resupply and things like that, and people sharing their experiences. But I just think this is a great question because each person, each thru hiker might have something different to share here. And so what I shared with a lot of people when they asked me this ties to this idea of thru hiking success being 90% mental. So I think mental preparation can be really powerful before a thru hike, because I think there's a lot of truth in that saying that thru hiking success is 90% mental. And preparing for that, like preparing yourself mentally for a thru hike, can be really powerful and as important as having the right gear and having the right training and all that sort of thing. And so a few tips to prepare yourself mentally. One is to set realistic expectations, to have realistic expectations of what you're going to encounter once you're out there on the trail. So by that, I mean, you will have amazing days out there, and you will have a lot of really challenging days. And there's usually like a honeymoon phase. So especially on your first hike, like you go out there and everything is amazing and it's all new and it's exciting and you're meeting new people and you're out walking every day and snacking and sitting in the sun and drinking out of rivers, and it just seems awesome. And then generally at a certain point, you will have days where it starts to feel like a slog and you'll miss your family or home or pets or a partner or whatever it is. And maybe you're homesick and you want to go home, or you're injured and you're struggling, or maybe it's like raining outside and you don't want to get out of your tent. Like there's going to be days that are challenging. And I think it's really valuable to know how you're going to respond during those challenging times. So I even like to like visualize feeling how I'm going to feel on those hard days, and then how I'm going to respond to that. And that way you're not caught off guard when those days inevitably do happen. And as part of this, and sort of like the second answer tip to this question, is it's really helpful to know your why for out there, why you're out there. Like know your why for why you're out there. Because it most likely you are going to have these challenging days, especially on a multi-month hike, and knowing the deeper reason for why you're out there is going to be what keeps you going. So thinking this through, ideally writing this down before you even get out there, like why does this matter to you? How are you going to feel if you accomplished your goal? And how are you going to feel if you don't accomplish your goal? And then having that as like a written note on your phone that you can look at on those really tough days, if you're thinking about quitting or something like that. Just remind yourself of why you're there, how it's going to feel when you succeed, what kind of person you're going to become, or how it's going to feel if you decide not to pursue that goal and you go home. And either way, just like having thought that through in advance, I think is really powerful. And then the last tip was generally like, it kind of falls in the category of like knowing what matters to you once you're on trail, knowing how you want to hike your hike. So there will be people out there who are hiking in all sorts of different ways. Some are going to be skipping around, some are going to be staying in town for like multiple days at a time. Some people are going to be out there for like the social experience, the partying experience. There's going to be people all doing their thing. And I think it's really helpful to just know what matters to you before you get out there, so that you can make grounded decisions from a place of knowing what's best for you, and you don't get like swept up in what's going on around you. You know what matters to you, and you can make decisions that are in alignment with that. So those are my tips on thru hiking wisdom, I guess, and what I would be thinking about before my first thru hike, and honestly before any thru hike really. And then the last sort of like common theme that I want to cover today that came up in these office hour questions last week is how to deal with fear when you are on technical terrain or something like a high pass, like in the Sierras is a great example of where you might run into that. Or like in Colorado up on the 14ers when you're getting into like class 3, 4, 5 climbing on the 14ers. So the way I handle this is I'm thinking about it before I even get there. So I'm looking at my maps ahead of time. I'm looking at what the best route is based on the topo lines and kind of like looking for different options. If I can, I'm looking at trip reports so that I can see how others have navigated this spot, and so I can know what to look out for and where it might get tricky. And then I'm visualizing how I'm gonna go through this. I'm visualizing myself moving through this tricky spot. I'm visualizing myself remaining calm, making the right moves, getting to the top safely, and like moving on with my hike and feeling good and accomplished, and again being safe doing it. if there's like I said, if there's tricky moves, I'm like going over that again and again in my mind of how I'm going to do it, what might go wrong, what I'm going to do in that case. And I'm visualizing myself staying calm in the process of that. That way, when I'm out there and my nerves are high and I can't think as clearly as I can, when I'm thinking through this in advance, it's already ingrained in my mind how I'm going to move through this terrain, through this tricky spot. Once I'm out there, if I find that I'm getting worked up, I will work on calming my nervous system. And there's two primary ways that I do this, and that's through the breath and then through visual cues. So with the breath, we can actually shift ourselves into a more parasympathetic state, which is more of like the rest, digest, repair state, versus a worked up sympathetic state, which is more of that fight or flight state. So parasympathetic state is like the calm, you can think more clearly type of state. And again, I do that through breath and through visual cues. With my breath, I'll do something like box breathing. So that'll be like 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts exhale, and 4 counts hold again, and then start that cycle and maybe do like 6 to 10 rounds to that to shift back into a parasympathetic state. And then with visual cues, what I'll do is I will look up and like open my gaze. So like look out towards the horizon and open my gaze up a bit more. And that is actually something what will also shift you into more of a parasympathetic state, because when you're like hyper focus on us, like you're like a narrow field of vision, basically, that's more of like a sympathetic dominant state. And that makes sense. Like if you're a prey trying to get away from a predator, you're going to be in that very focused, narrow state. Whereas if you look up and open into like a wide, soft gaze, that'll shift you back into that parasympathetic state. So those are two sort of like little hacks to like calm your nervous system on the spot. And then once I have calmed myself down and brought like my logical brain back online, I try to distinguish like real from perceived fear. So am I actually in danger in this situation, or is my brain just telling me that I'm in danger? Because a lot of times I think our brains can get out of control and sort of like run away with it, with ourselves, in situations where like the danger actually isn't as real as our brain is trying to tell us that it is. I mean, some cases it is, but not always. And then the last part of that is I assess what I can control and what I can't control, and then I focus my energy on controlling the things that I can. So these are things like keeping myself well fed, hydrated, calming my nervous system, like paying attention to where my footholds are, things like that. When you focus on what you can control versus what you can't control, or focusing on like the fear, it puts you in a much better state to move forward calmly. So I hope that was helpful. Those are my 3 questions that I'm going to answer today. As I mentioned, if this is interesting to you, if you like this format, let me know in the comments or with a DM, and go ahead and submit your own question if you have your own. Like I said, I had a blast answering these questions, and yeah, I think a lot of us have the same questions. So if you're thinking about submitting something, it's most likely going to be helpful to someone else as well. And I hope this helps you. I imagine many of you, like me, are planning your backcountry adventures for this coming year. So hopefully this is supportive in helping you get out there more safely and confidently. And again, if you want to deepen your backcountry knowledge on any of these topics I talked about today, I invite you to check out my online courses at katiegerber.teachable.com, and I'll drop the link in the comments below. And if you're watching this live or in the next couple of days, I invite you to take advantage of the solstice flash sale. So happy holidays and happy trails. I'll see you next time.